On the 27th of March 2026, I was diagnosed with kidney cancer. Hi guys, Happy New Year. Hope yours is going better than mine. Let's play a game of spot the mass in the kidney. Here's mine. That is a video that I sent to my friends at the start of the year to update them on what had been going on. But everything started November 2025. So let me take you back. So November time, I'd started a new job. I work in quite a physical job and I work outside most of the time, which is lovely, absolutely love it. And one day, end of November, beginning of December, I started to get pain in my chest, in like my right side of my chest. And it was going through to my back. And this happened for a couple of days. So I went to A&E on the Friday because it got really bad. And I was there for quite a while. Yeah, I was there for absolutely ages. And they said to me, oh, all your bloods are fine. Everything's fine. You need to go back to your GP because we think you might have gallstones. Well, my health anxiety was not satisfied with that comment. I was not happy with that. So I just couldn't stop thinking about it really. So I went to book a private scan. So you know those places that do 4D baby scans? That is where I booked to have my upper abdominal ultrasound scan because they have the equipment and stuff. So they've just opened it up now to all other scans that they can manage basically. So I went along to this scanning place on a Saturday morning, and it was the same room that I'd had my second son's 4D ultrasound done, which was a bit strange. Anyway, we get in there, she does the scan, she's very quiet, but she did warn me she'd be quiet and not to read in too much to that. Anyway, at the end, she says to me, and I'll never forget what she said. She said to me, oh, get yourself dressed and stuff. You don't have gallstones, but if you look at the monitor, I'll show you what I did find. And I just thought, oh my God, right, okay, that's it. Anyway, so she showed me the scan, showed me the monitor, and there was a 5 centimetre mass on my right kidney. It looked like it was inside of my right kidney. I was really shocked. I kind of thought, what else? What now? What now? There wasn't really much else to do there, so she just advised me to go to my GP, to take the findings to my GP and to start from there basically with a referral to urology. She said it looked like an AML, which, and I'm not going to get this right at all, an angiomyolipoma, I think is what it's called. And if you Google that, you will see that it's pretty harmless and you can get them in your kidney. Yeah, so I left there and I don't remember getting home. I don't remember getting home at all. I just remember sitting on my bed and my husband came up and said, you know, how'd it go? What's wrong? I said, I've got a large mass on my kidney. And of course this happened on a Saturday, so I had to wait until Monday to get a GP appointment, which is always fun. So I called up on the Monday and they said, yeah, you can have a GP appointment, but as it's non-urgent, you have to wait a couple of weeks. I said, well, it is quite urgent. I've just found a mass on my kidney. We don't know what it is. I wanted to see someone that day really, but they wouldn't let me. So we went back and forth, and they ended up booking me in to see someone on Thursday, I think it was. That was a long wait. I was still working at this point, but that was a really long week for me. Anyway, I get to the GP appointment and I show her the scan results that I had printed out and the diagnostic report. She said to me, yep, don't worry, try not to worry too much about it now, which is impossible really, but we will do a 2-week cancer pathway wait referral to urology. So I was happy with that. That's when the drama starts. So initially, urology booked me in for 3 months' time. That was for an initial consultation. We went back and forth with them. You know, I said this referral from the GP was done under a 2-week wait. I do need to be seen within 2 weeks. We don't know if this is cancer or not. It could be, just because the diagnostic report said possibly an AML, but it didn't present as an AML completely. So she said it must be under further testing. So I had a CT scan. Now, if you have never had a CT scan before, they're a bit like a giant mint polo with a little bed that goes through it. And I had it with contrast as well, which does make you feel like you're having a hot flush. But it doesn't hurt or anything like that. And so I had that done, and I had to wait about a week, I think it was, for the results of that to come back. Now, no one called me. I had no communication with the hospital or a consultant or a doctor or anything like that. I just got a letter come through on my medical app that said that I needed an MRI. And that absolutely terrified me, because they said that the CT scan was inconclusive and that I needed an MRI. Now, I've never had an MRI, but I really didn't want the MRI. 3rd of Feb, I had the MRI done, and I won't lie, wasn't the nicest experience ever. I had it with contrast again, but that just made your arm a bit cold, and it was absolutely fine. It was, first of all, I'm claustrophobic. So going into that it's literally there right in front of your face when you go into this tube. And then I had to have earplugs and headphones on. And because it's literally there, it sounds like someone's just banging a pot next to your head. It is like War of the Worlds type sound. That's the only thing I could think of the whole time I was in there. On the 6th of Feb, I had a urology appointment with another consultant, and I was expecting to go in there and for them to say, yep, it's cancer, we know what it is. That also came back inconclusive. But she said to me, whatever it is, it shouldn't be there. So we would like to cut it out, basically. So, whoa, okay. That's quite big surgery, which I hadn't planned on. I don't know what I thought she would say, to be honest, but she said, so we need to get rid of it. So then we're talking about surgery, we're talking about the type of surgery that would happen. So the choices were, well, not really a choice, to be honest. What she advised was getting the whole kidney removed, the whole of my right kidney removed, because she said it's quite a large mass, and getting the whole kidney removed will be easier for you recovery-wise. There's less complications. It will just be better all round for everyone. And the recovery is like 2 weeks and then you'll be fine. That was wrong. So I left there thinking that I'm going to have this right kidney removed. I was in a bit of shock again. I've just been in shock for the last 10 weeks, to be quite honest. She said it might be worth getting a biopsy done, but it doesn't really change anything because they'll take it for histology, like testing afterwards anyway. But we can do a biopsy if you want. Move forward about a week maybe, I had a very long phone call with a urology specialist cancer nurse. And it was a really good phone call, really, really informative. And she basically explained to me that the surgeons who are going to do my surgery want me to have a biopsy. They want to confirm as much about this mass as they can before they remove it or try to remove it, which I thought was fair enough. She also said that they want to try and do a partial nephrectomy, which is where they take out just the mass and potentially half of your kidney with it to leave me with some of my right kidney. And that was down to my age and the fact that I would have longer with just one kidney, and that worried them a little bit because of my age. If anything were to happen to the other kidney, I would need a transplant, dialysis, that kind of thing. So I thought, fair enough, that's quite a good plan. So I agreed to the biopsy and we had that done. And that in itself was an odd experience. It was just a day thing, a morning thing, but they take you down to I'm not quite sure what part of the hospital it was, but there were lots of cancer patients there prepping for surgery and treatment. It was just really sad to see, really. Lots of different types of people, actually, young, old. A lot of them missing their hair, and I had, quite long hair at the time, and I had a few people say to me, oh, you know, you'll be all right, don't worry, we're all going through it. And I thought, oh, am I going through it? I don't know if it's cancer yet. Anyway, I had this biopsy done. It was a punch biopsy, so it stung a little bit putting the local anaesthetic in. Stung a little bit then. They did the punch biopsy and he did 2 goes at the biopsy, and the second one he was more happy with. And I don't know what made me think this. He didn't say it was cancer or anything, but the second one he turned to the nursing assistant and said, oh, that's a more obvious one. And I don't know why, because I have no idea if he could tell it was cancer from that point or not. But I just thought, oh, it's cancer, I know it is. I can just tell now that it's cancer. We had that done. I had a couple of days off work because they told me I had to. So in this time, my surgery has been booked for the 28th of April. So I'm going with a potential partial nephrectomy, which is removing the mass and half my kidney, or it could be a total nephrectomy, but I wouldn't know until I woke up what they had managed to do, because it was quite a complicated placement where the mass was. I waited 2 weeks for the biopsy results to come back. That was a long 2 weeks. I was still working at this point, really, really trying, but my mental health was just really suffering at this point. You just keep thinking the worst, and the wait was awful. On a Friday, everything in this story happens on a Friday or a Saturday, so I can't contact anyone for 2 or 3 days. It's an absolute joke. On a Friday, I get a letter come through the post saying that I have been booked an urgent appointment with a consultant face-to-face at Hamwick House. Now, if you live in Southampton and you've had to deal with this, you will know that Hamwick House is a cancer specialist unit. So now I'm really freaking out. And I thought, well, that's it, it's cancer. I know it's cancer. I emailed my cancer specialist nurse and said, can you just tell me what's going on? I've had no communication with anyone apart from these letters coming through, but no one's called me to tell me what's going on. I'm really, really worried now. I also called Hamwick House, but they would not give me any information at all. They were very strict, so they couldn't tell me anything apart from confirming my appointment. So the whole weekend, knowing that I've got this appointment at Hamwick House, then I get to Monday, don't hear anything. On Tuesday, my cancer nurse calls me in the morning. So I'm off work by this point because I just can't cope with anything. My mental health's gone really down the toilet. And she says to me, oh, hi, how you doing? And before I could speak, she just says, right, okay, well, these types of results, I've seen your email. These types of results are best given face-to-face. So we'll see you on Friday or Thursday, whatever it was. We'll see you on Friday. Yeah, we'll take it from there. And she hung up the phone. So I didn't even get a chance to say, what's going on? Can you tell me anything? But the words, these types of results are best given face-to-face. Well, it's obvious, isn't it, that it was cancer. What day was that? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Yeah, I had to wait 4 days, basically. And that was awful. That was absolutely awful. Because you never know what type of cancer it is. I didn't know how aggressive it would be. I didn't know what treatment. I was looking up everything on TikTok, which I know I shouldn't have been doing, but I was looking on TikTok, I was looking on Google, just thinking the worst, basically. So we get to the Friday of the appointment at Hamwick House. We dropped the kids off, came home for a bit. The appointment wasn't until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And when I tell you, that was the longest day of my life. I always thought that the time in between your due date and actually having your baby, because both my children have been overdue, I thought that time dragged. Well, I'm telling you now, this was worse than that. This time dragged so much. Every minute felt like an hour. We got to the hospital early. We'd never been to Hamwick House, so we went and found Hamwick House. Then we went for a walk, went and got a drink, went for another walk, sat down for a bit, then it started raining, went for another walk. It just didn't seem to end the time. And then what do you say to each other? What do you say to each other? So we basically just sat in silence for like 2 hours. Anyway, it gets to 12:30. We go into Hamwick House. I said, I can't sit out here anymore. I need to go in. Check into the appointment and you go through to this waiting room. And in the window on the outside, I could see loads of people having their chemo or their whatever they were having, which was scary in itself. Went through, checked in, and then you go through to a waiting room. You're with lots of other people waiting to go through to one of the consultation rooms. Well, we walked into the waiting room and this lady who was sat there took one look at me and said, "Oh, what a shame, she's so young." And I was like speaking to her husband. I nearly burst into tears then. I hadn't really cried up until this point. I'd just been in sort of a state of shock. But everyone there was having a variation of cancer treatment, consultation meetings, blood tests, that kind of thing. So we waited half an hour. Again, that was the longest half an hour of my life. Got called through to see the consultant. She wasted no time in telling me, "We have found cancer." And I initially thought I was going to burst into tears. And then I didn't. It's like my body just shut down, and I think I just went into shock, basically. That was it. She said, "You've got cancer." She said, "You've got a chromophobe cancer, kidney cancer," which in itself, she said it's the best one that you can have in terms of kidney cancer, and that it's slow growing and it's non-aggressive. I mean, can there ever be any cancers that are the best? I don't know. I mean, I guess it's better than really, really aggressive cancer. So, I don't know. Anyway, we got home, we got back to my in-laws, and we told them, and that was all quite, everyone's talking about it around me, and they weren't being rude or anything. I just was in a little world of my own, really. Sent a message to my friends because they'd all been waiting for me to have this appointment. I'd been keeping them updated. Told them it was just a bizarre day, really. We had to go and get the kids, and I just remember thinking, what do I say to them? I've got an 8 and a 4-year-old, so the 4-year-old absolutely weren't going to tell anything. The 8-year-old, we decided not to tell him it was cancer. We just decided to say that Mummy had a poorly kidney and that I'd be having an operation. So the 28th of April comes around and we're up bright and early. We've moved into my in-laws' house at this point because they're 5 minutes from the hospital and they can help with the children and stuff, and they've got the space for us to be there. And we're up bright and early, go into the hospital. I'm first on the list. When you have a big operation like that, you're asked the same questions by about 100 different people. There was the ward nurse, making sure I was the right person. The anaesthesiologist came through. The surgeons came through. Literally everyone you could think of involved in the surgery came in and asked me the same questions over and over again just to double check. I had the marker pen on my arm to make sure they got the right side. Everyone left and we had a couple of minutes just with me and Jack, my husband. And this guy sat opposite me. You could tell I was nervous in a state. He said, "Oh, don't worry. I've had loads of minor surgeries here. They're really, really great." And I said, "Oh, that's good to know." I said, "I'm having half my kidney removed for cancer." He went, "Oh." He went, "Right, well, I've not had that done before." But he was really sweet. He was trying to cheer me up, but I don't think I could be cheered up at that point. So then we walk down to the surgical room, and there's only so far Jack can go before it's just me and the nurse. So I say goodbye to Jack. Again, I just felt completely numb at this point. Didn't really feel anything. And then we went through to what is the aftercare room, like the post-surgical ward. I was the only one in there, and they sat me on a chair and gave me an emotional support pillow because they said I'd need one just to hold while they were waiting. And I had a complete breakdown. I was crying, I was shaking. I felt absolutely awful, to be honest. I was so scared. I was so scared. I thought I was going to die, basically, in surgery. The nurses there were amazing. This guy was absolutely incredible. He, kept coming over to check on me, was looking after me. Then the surgeon came in, one of the surgeons came in to check on me, and she said, "Look, don't worry, it's all right. We're going to be with you the whole time, blah, blah." Anyway, I don't know how much time passed, but it felt like forever. She finally came and got me, and she held my hand and she said to me, "When we go through to the surgical room, just keep focusing on me, because there's a lot of equipment and a lot of people being very busy doing what they need to do, but don't focus on them. Just hold my hand and try and focus on me and what I'll be talking to you about." So we go into this room and it's freezing cold, absolutely freezing. The first thing I see is the robot, because my surgery was, potentially partial nephrectomy with robotic. So the robot has 5 pins basically that they're going to cut me open, put the pins in, and it's a bit like a keyhole but with a robot. And that's huge, absolutely huge. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And I sat down on this bed, which was warm, which is a weird sensation. It was completely warm. Bearing in mind I've got nothing on under this gown because they told me I had to take everything off. So I've just got this gown, I'm sat on a warm bed, absolutely crying my eyes out. And the surgeon was lovely. And they lay me down. I've got one arm out here and they're putting the cannula in and asking me all these questions. My other arm is holding the surgeon, who's a bit old school. She'd swapped surgeons by now. She was a bit old school and a bit tougher, and I think I kind of needed that in that moment. And I was basically having a panic attack at that point. So I was laying down, they put the oxygen mask on me, and then at one point she just turned to the person behind me and went, "Give her the drugs. Give her the drugs." So he just into the mask, and I don't know what was in it. I think it was diazepam. But honestly, it was bliss. It was absolute bliss. Now, I don't condone drugs whatsoever, but if you are having surgery in a panic attack, diazepam is the thing you want. All my cares and worries just flew away. And it was about, I don't know, 3 seconds maybe, and I was out. When I woke up, I was in the recovery room, and I don't remember a lot about how I felt. I just remember feeling really groggy, in and out of sleep quite a lot. But the surgical nurse came over, the post-surgical nurse came over and was checking on me. And then at one point the surgeons came in and said, "Oh, well done, it went really well, we did a partial." And they were kind of all saying this stuff to me, but I wasn't really taking a lot of notice because I was out of it. But I do remember them saying that we'd done a successful partial nephrectomy. So they'd taken half my kidney along with the mass, and that they were more or less happy that they got it all at this point, this early stage. So I remember thinking, that's great. The first thing I wanted to know was if they'd called Jack. Now, the post-surgical nurse said that the surgeon had called my husband once they'd finished, which was 6 hours later. It took 6 hours to do my surgery. So they called him and let him know. It then took 4 hours for me to wake up. My poor husband, honestly, 10 hours he'd waited for me to wake up, basically. So they called him again, let him know. I thought he'd gone back to his parents during this time because they live 5 minutes from the hospital. He didn't, bless him. He walked the corridors of that hospital for 10 hours, then stopped, got a Costa, couldn't eat anything. And I think he did about 30,000 steps that day. He just paced the hospital, basically, in case anything bad happened, bless him. I get moved to this recovery ward and I'm well looked after there. Then in the morning, they say, "Oh, we'll do all your checks and stuff, but you can go home today." I thought, go home today? Like, it's only 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I only had it done yesterday morning. Like, I can't believe that. They said, no, we want you up and about. It's really good for your recovery to be up and about. So I was up and about. I was going to the toilet on my own, like really sore, but I felt really well, really bloated, but everyone there was in a right state, so no one cared. Everyone was walking around in their 90s with, their boobs hanging out and everything. So, it was not a problem. Managed to go to the toilet, brush my teeth, get in and out of bed, sit in the chair. They said they want you in the chair from as early as possible. Got in the chair, had some food, felt great. I left and I went home at 2 o'clock, got discharged with some paracetamol. They said, yeah, paracetamol's all you need. It's fine, just take it regularly every 4 hours, you'll be fine. Which I thought was a bit strange, but then, don't underestimate the power of paracetamol, I guess. So over the next 3 to 4 weeks, I spent more time in hospital than out of hospital. I went back in the first time after about 48 hours because I had lots of fevers. I was getting really bad temperatures, like 39 plus temperatures. And the wounds were okay and I felt okay, but I was really tired, but they said that was understandable because of the amount of anaesthetic that I'd had. So I go into hospital, I was there for 2 days. Everything was a bit raised, all my levels were a bit raised, but they didn't specifically tell me what levels were raised. I stayed on the ward that was linked to the A&E, so we had lots of different people coming in for lots of different reasons on that ward, which made it very interesting to be on, to say the least. I was there for 2 nights, 3 days, before I was discharged home. And again, I was just really tired, but I felt more positive. Like physically, I felt all right, but I was just really drained, really tired, kept getting these temperatures. So they sent me home with some antibiotics. Within 24 hours, I was calling an ambulance because I was peeing blood, basically. So yeah, I woke up one morning, I felt really tired. I went for my 2-hour nap that I was doing every day, which I now looking back realised that wasn't quite right. And I couldn't move. Could not move, and I had this pain that came up my back. It was like a tingling sensation that went all the way up my back to the back of my neck. I said to Jack, I can't move. He had to pull me out of bed, went to the toilet, and I was bleeding. So then I'm just panicking. I was in a right state. I was just crying. We called an ambulance and they sent one straight away. Managed to get me downstairs and the paramedics came and they took my temperature and it was 39.9, something like that. So straight away they're like, right, you know, this could be sepsis. You've just had an operation. You've got really high temperature. You're bleeding. We don't know what's going on. We need to get you in. So I went by ambulance, which was so painful because the pain in my right side, in my back, was absolutely awful. Got to A&E. There must have been about 50 people just in beds in the corridors. I just thought, that's it. I'm just going to be here forever. The paramedics were amazing. They felt so sorry for me. They were like, I'm really sorry you've got to deal with this. But they tried really hard to get me bumped up the queue. There were a lot of people in there, so I was told, that needed obviously hospital treatment, but that were stable at that point, whereas they didn't know what was going on with me. I just had the bleeding and the pain and the possible sepsis because of the high temperature. Anyway, it made no difference. I had to wait in that queue, same as everyone else. So they transferred me to a bed, a proper bed. And I don't remember how long I was there, but I remember being in a corridor and it was like chaos. It was absolute chaos. There were drunk people shouting. There were elderly people who had had falls, who all of them seemed to have the same bandage on their head. There were young people who'd blatantly come off scooters and stuff like that, who'd broken things. And I just remember having this number hung on my bed and I was in so much pain, so much pain. It was absolutely horrific. And I remember turning to Jack at one point and saying, I don't want to die here. I don't want to die in a hospital corridor. And I was so upset. Honestly, I cannot explain to you the pain. It was absolutely horrific. And this one nurse sort of saw me and looked at me because I could barely sit down. I could barely lie back or anything. This nurse saw me. He said, are you all right? I said, no. I said, I'm going to die. I'm literally going to die if someone doesn't do something. He said, right, okay. He said, right. You could tell he was completely rushed off his feet, but he went and got me some stronger pain meds. Bearing in mind, I've already had morphine at this point, and that wasn't even touching the sides. And he gave me some more paracetamol, and we waited in that corridor. Before we went up to the main ward, this is hours later, before we went up to the main ward, I had a CT scan done with contrast again, which was really painful because you got to lie down flat and then get up again. And I couldn't even do that. And this scan comes back and it says, oh, you've got a huge blood clot where the half of your kidney that was cut into is. So basically I was internally bleeding and this blood clot was putting pressure, was building up the pressure in my back. So that's what the pain was. Now, long story short, they weren't going to operate on it. They said it will kind of stop itself. But the main thing they wanted to get under control was the infection because they said, oh, you know, you've potentially got sepsis. I was in hospital for 11 days and it was antibiotic after antibiotic, paracetamol, morphine, sending bloods for cultures every day, changing the antibiotics. These are the strongest antibiotics we've got. If they don't work, I don't know what we're going to do. That's what one of the doctors said to me. I thought, well, I don't know, do I? You have to work something out. Anyway, it was 11 days. I got moved 4 times to different wards in that day because they wanted my bed because they said that I was well enough that I should be going home. The treatment at that hospital wasn't great, to be quite honest. And we've had long chats with pals and I don't know, it was just awful really. The whole experience was awful. And yeah, so then I came home and now I'm here. So I am now 10 weeks post-op. I am looking at returning to work soon. I'm still waiting on final pathology results. Because of my age, they sent it off to Birmingham, like a specialist place that will do genome testing as well, I guess, to see if my kids need anything in the future. But yeah, so now I'm here. I don't really know how to feel about it. Sometimes I get really upset about it. Other times I just feel like it didn't happen, like it was a dream, like, I don't know. But I'm hoping and praying that these final results will just be, yeah, we got it all and we're happy with everything and it's not aggressive and you don't need immunotherapy for a year, which is all these things I've been told potentially could happen. I have already seen my surgeon and he showed me, again, showed my husband, he's very excited to show my husband, the 3D model that was made of my mass and my kidney because it was such a complex case because he said it was the biggest one he's ever done. They sent it off to make a 3D model of the kidney. And yeah, it's pretty funky looking. The green bit is the mass the rest of it's my kidney. It's pretty big. Yeah, no, he said this is absolutely a time to celebrate. You know, we definitely think we got it all. We'll just wait for the testing to come back, which, knowing my luck, will be something awful, but fingers crossed it's not. So yeah, that's what happened. The moral of the story is trust your gut, always trust your gut, and sometimes your medical anxiety wins. Trust your gut. If I think about what would have happened if I hadn't have had that private ultrasound scan, because I wouldn't have got an urgent 2-week referral from the GP. It would have just been, oh, you know, probably dietary related stuff, or you're overweight, you need to do this, this and that, you know, as they always say. And I would have just never found it, pretty much. They say that you tend to find kidney cancers when it's sort of at a real late stage, but mine was also quite big, so they think it's been there for a while. I've definitely had my second son while it's been there, which is terrifying in itself. But yeah, don't know really, because I had no symptoms at all, apart from that bit of chest pain, which I think was completely unrelated. I think that was just indigestion, to be quite honest. Bra's too tight, something like that. So anyway, I will leave you now. I will put some bits in the description for support if you're going through anything cancer related, or you know, the biggest thing is if you're worried about something, please go to your GP and just hound them until you get what you need, because we all know they're not great at times, especially if you're a woman. They just put it down to, you know, your weight, hormones. Oh, when was your last period? Oh, what's that got to do with kidney cancer? Nothing. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I hope you are well. Bye.